Coming up today, in its latest move to stoke into Korean tensions, North Korea holds live fire drills just north of its maritime border with South Korea. Analysts say North Korea's recent execution of its defense chief shows Kim Jong-un's grip on power may be slipping. The US says the killing just highlights the brutal nature of the regime. Plus, the South Korean military says a reservist who went on a shooting spree Wednesday before turning the gun on himself was on a special watch list for depression and failing to adapt to military life. Stay tuned for these stories and more. Hello to our viewers around the world. It's 6 a.m. on Thursday, May 14th here in Seoul. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broome. And we start with news that North Korea conducted live fire drills near its western maritime border with the South late Wednesday night, further inflaming tensions that have been simmering for weeks now. South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff says the North Korean military fired about 130 artillery rounds near waters north of the Northern Limit Line, or NLL, in the West Sea. The firing started at around 9 p.m. Korea time and finished about 90 minutes later. The drill started roughly 6 hours after North Korea notified the South that it would hold firing exercises through midnight Friday in 2 designated areas. One is some 10 kilometers away from the South's Baekneungdo Island, the other 12 kilometers from Yeonpyeongdo Island. The South Korean military said none of the shells fired on Wednesday night landed on the south side of the NLL. The world is still abuzz with North Korea's surprising and shocking public execution of its defense minister Hyun Young-chul for supposedly disrespecting leader Kim Jong-un and slacking off on the job. The US State Department says that if the report about Hyun's execution by Seoul spy agency is true, it shows the cruelty of Kim's regime and its low regard for human life, and added that it would not be the first example of extreme brutality shown by Kim. Now, Hyun is said to have been executed late last month by firing squad with an anti-aircraft gun. Citing related experts and analysts, international media outlets such as the BBC and the Guardian newspaper say Kim Jong-un's latest move could give cause for concern about North Korea's stability. An analyst told the BBC that the execution is a clear indication Kim does not feel secure in his position. Another told The Guardian that the situation as it stands looks quite worrisome. North Korea has, for the moment at least, not commented on the reports. And while this latest high-profile execution came out of the blue, it appears to be part of a larger pattern of purges initiated by Kim Jong-un. For more about how the young leader could be using fear to consolidate his own authority, our Hwang Sang-hee reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un appears to be removing anyone who challenges his power. That's according to South Korea's National Intelligence Service. In addition to having Defense Chief Hyun Young-chul executed, the young leader also ousted a number of his closest aides over the last 6 months. In fact, Hyun is just one of 70 officials shot to death since Kim assumed leadership of North Korea in December 2011. One of the most shocking killings was Kim's uncle Chang Sung-taek, who was executed in 2013. In comparison, his father Kim Jong-il executed only 10 officials in the first 4 years of his leadership. The South Korean government said the frequent purges are part of Kim's power consolidation process.
The government views North Korea's purges as a method to promote and solidify Kim Jong-un's one-man leadership through the use of fear tactics.
But Seoul's National Intelligence Service said the purges have raised doubts about Kim within the ruling class. North Korean officials are reported to have said that one must be ready to give up his life before speaking up. While some say Kim's efforts to consolidate power will alienate elites, other experts rule out any sign of instability within the regime.
I think the Kim Jong-un regime is using shock tactics to stabilize the leadership. Considering that North Korea is not doing bad economically, the chances of a coup or a revolution are very slim.
Experts predict more senior officials will be purged in the coming days, a measure to ensure enduring loyalty to the North Korean leader. 황상희, Arirang News.
North Korea has criticized South Korea over the ongoing wage dispute at the inter-Korean Kaesong industrial complex, hinting that the North Korean workers there could walk off the job unless the issue is resolved soon. Pyongyang's General Bureau for Central Guidance on the Development of the Special Zone issued a statement on Wednesday saying the complex was a special economic zone created to work together with South Korean companies, and added that there was no need for the South Korean government to meddle in the situation. It then slammed Seoul for being cheap over the already low wages the North Korean workers receive at the Kaesong complex. The statement comes as the two Koreas remain embroiled in this wage dispute after the North unilaterally decided to hike the minimum monthly wage for its 53,000 workers at the inter-Korean factory zone. Turning now to the latest on Wednesday's shooting spree by a South Korean reservist in Seoul that left 3 people, including the shooter, dead and 2 others seriously injured. Army officials say the 23-year-old reservist, identified only by his family name Chae, had a handwritten note in his pocket in which he mentions the shooting practice he would have the next day and his plans to kill everyone around him and himself. In the note, he also wrote that his life was meaningless and complained about the pain he suffered during his military training. It's also been reported that the shooter, who had received treatment for depression, was on the military's list of draftees requiring special attention while serving as an active duty soldier. The 2 men who were injured in the attack are receiving treatment for gunshot wounds at hospital, but their injuries are not said to be life-threatening. President Park Geun-hye has expressed her concerns about government overspending on state projects at an annual pre-budget meeting to discuss Korea's fiscal policy for the next 5 years. The president suggested the country adopt a so-called pay-as-you-go system from the US. Choi Sun reports.
Stressing the need to maintain the country's financial soundness to protect people's livelihoods, President Park Geun-hye directed officials to review state projects from square one when putting together the budget this year. She said projects that are found to be invalid or redundant should be eliminated. She also called for greater transparency in the state subsidy management system to prevent budget leaks. According to government data, Korea posted a deficit of nearly $28 billion last year. To better manage the budget mid to long term in an aging society with increasing demands for welfare, the president said there's an urgent need to adopt a pay-as-you-go system like in the U.S., where new spending or tax cuts must be paid for by a tax increase or spending reduction. She said the policy, which prioritizes fiscal restraint, has helped the U.S. government to achieve a budget surplus of $55 billion over the past 5 years. Japan has implemented a similar policy to maintain its fiscal health. President Park also took aim at the parliament for what she characterized as its imprudent spending through legislation. The presidential office says too many bills that require massive expenditures are submitted to Parliament without a proposal for ways to finance the plans. Urging lawmakers to approve pending bills related to the pay-as-you-go system, President Park compared the system to the way a homemaker would manage the household by first reducing unnecessary expenses when there's demand for new spending. Choi Yu-sun, Arirang News.
And with the president's directive in mind, the Korean government is preparing to carry out some thorough reviews, looking to boost efficiency and stimulate the economy with the 2016 budget. Our Song Ji-son reports.
No stone left unturned. Officials will begin with an all-out review of government programs with a view to structuring next year's budget set to be allocated in June. They'll assess validity and apply a one-in, one-out policy to maintain the total number of projects. Authorities will also make sure that no individual or organization receives multiple or unqualified welfare subsidies by setting up a consolidated management system for government aid. Making efficiency a priority, the government will also invite the private sector to play a bigger part in creating infrastructure or SOC, social overhead capital, such as roads and bridges. Continuing with labor reform efforts, Seoul will develop long-term plans to help young people find work overseas as the extension of the retirement age raises youth unemployment concerns at home. In terms of growing the economy, the Science Ministry will launch an R&D strategy control tower to boost support for small and mid-sized companies, while the Defense Ministry will open its doors to private think tanks involving more experts in defense-related decisions. Moving forward, the government pledges to use evaluation and monitoring to root out lax budget implementation in the future. 송지선, Arirang News.
President Park Geun-hye says Korea will continue to work closely with Japan on considering prospects for a trilateral free trade pact with China and a regional treaty with Southeast Asia. The president on Wednesday met with Japanese business leaders and their Korean counterparts who were gathered in Seoul for an annual meeting. She said a regional FTA would offer them diverse opportunities to do business together. As for a recent decline in two-way trade, President Park asked the businessman to expand trade currently focused on intermediary goods to cover consumer goods as well. The association's chairman expressed hopes of increasing cooperation in medicine and nursing as both countries have to address their low birth rates and fast aging populations. President Park didn't touch on historical issues that have strained Korea-Japan relations in recent years. Korea's two main political parties remain in deadlock on a bill to reform the country's two pension systems, leaving the future of that and other bills in doubt. The main opposition party wants to move forward, while the ruling party now says the two systems should be dealt with separately and the civil servant pension reforms passed first. Ji Myung-gil reports.
As debate over the pension bill continues, one party has gone on the defensive and the other is in offensive mode. On Wednesday, ruling Saenuri Party chief Kim Moo-sung conveyed his discontent with critics who say the reform plan was drawn up hastily, adding that consensus was only reached after 4 months.
The civil servant pension reform bill was discussed by various interest groups, and they settled some of their differences. We asked for cooperation from the opposition party to pass at least the civil servant pension reform bill, as agreed on May 2nd.
Meanwhile, the opposition criticized the ruling party for scrapping the original plan and the presidential office for meddling in parliamentary affairs.
President Park Geun-hye has blamed the National Assembly for not passing the civil servant pension reforms and emphasized that the National Pension Reform Plan will place a heavy burden on taxpayers. But there's no evidence for that. The president is just instigating conflict.
The party struck agreement earlier this month on a bill covering reforms to both systems, but never voted on it because of argument over a clause related to the national pension scheme. That part of the plan would increase the payout to 50% of a subscriber's pre-retirement income from the current 40%. The presidential office, however, rejected the plan, saying the 10% increase will come at a cost of $1.5 trillion through 2080. Given the impasse, there is growing concern that lawmakers may put off voting on other bills, only to come up empty-handed at the end of the May session. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
The Iraqi government claims the deputy leader of the Islamic State group has been killed in an airstrike carried out by the US-led coalition. Baghdad's Ministry of Defense says Abu Ala al-Afari was killed along with dozens of other militants while in a mosque in northern Seoul. This when the bomb hit. The ministry didn't say when the strike took place, but one official told the Associated Press that it happened on Tuesday. Over the last few weeks, there had been unconfirmed reports that al-Fari was acting as a temporary leader of the group. IS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi is thought to have been seriously injured as a result of an airstrike in Iraq back in March. Well, that's all we have for now. I'm Mark Broome. Have a great day and thanks for watching. We do hope to see you at the same time on Friday morning here in Korea. Goodbye.